Hi, welcome to this week's episode of In the Hoods. This week we're going to be talking about the Flatiron District, which runs on the north 23rd Street and Madison Square Park, on the west Avenue of the Americas or 6th Avenue, on the south 14th Street, and on the east Park Avenue South. It's kind of a funny district in that it really wasn't named until 1985, which in the history of New York City is very recent. And the reason it gained a district name was because so many people were moving into the area. And that was happening largely because many of the co-op buildings, or the cast iron buildings along 5th Avenue, which had been called Ladies' Mile, because many of the stores and haberdashers and people involved in dressing the ladies of the early 1900s were located. Many of those properties were repurposed and turned into either condos or co-ops. But it is obviously named for perhaps the most photographed building in New York City, the Flatiron Building, which is located right at 23rd Street and 5th Avenue and Broadway, where it crosses over. And it's a beautiful triangular shaped building that was built by the Fuller Brush Company in the early 1900s. And I learned an interesting thing about this area. This is a part of Manhattan where the bedrock, which is under all of Manhattan, is much deeper than below 29th Street. It's much deeper, enabling in the early 1900s developers to build much taller buildings. And so the neighborhood it's really north of, it has the New York Life building, which abuts the Flatiron District, which is much taller. It has the Flatiron building, which was a skyscraper in its day. And many of the buildings south are built up to 12 stories high, which was a skyscraper back in the day. And the reason they could do that was because the bedrock was much deeper in this part of town than it is just up north of 29th Street, where you had much smaller buildings for a long time because construction hadn't caught up. They didn't have the technology to be able to build very high. So this area historically has Teddy Roosevelt's home was in this area, Brownstone. I think it's on West 21st Street, which is still open to the public occasionally. Edith Wharton lived on 23rd Street in a brownstone in this area. It has a lot of history. But the main thing which defines the Flatiron District is the Flatiron Building, which is right on the edge of Madison Square Park and is so distinctive. I think next to the Empire State Building is definitely the most photographed. It may be more photographed because it's easier to photograph than the Empire State Building. But as people moved more north, even the Fuller Brush Company abandoned the building it had built and ended up moving to 57th Street. So New York is always moving, always evolving, and it's hard to keep up with. But thanks for checking in.